Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. Roster drama continues, Ye giving his perspective on what potentially could be the Evil Geniuses roster for next season, heavily hinting that Ye is going to be back in the North American VCT after all the drama over the last couple of years. Very much interested to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. There was a Sentinels show match we'll get into over the coming minutes here, but we've got to talk about some other things as well. This is the new Sunset B site planting locations, so they've changed the sites quite considerably. I think the intention is to now make it less clear that you just need to plant, go back to main and defend it from there. Now it's going to be more so defended probably from market position, and it's still going to likely be you plant the bomb, you get off the site and you play the post plant from there, which is obviously not optimal. We heard TENS and others talk about that over the last couple of days, but nonetheless these are changes to Sunset that are probably for the better, but I guess time will tell. There was also this from Zest. Apparently, he may just call it a day. We know that he was on Bleed Esports recently, and, well, he's going to be taking an indefinite break from the VCT after all the drama over the last couple of months. I still don't know if it'll be for the whole season, but for now, I plan to take a break, he says. Now, this kind of coincides with another tweet that he put out the other day, which was the following, and, well, he's not so happy, seemingly, with the current Neon meta. Neon is everywhere. There's actually a funny clip here from Marv I'll share for you guys, probably right about now. Actually, I'll just kind of put it in the background here. So here's Marved, obviously, using the Neon to great effect here on the Abyss. So here's Marved, of course, pulling out the Neon. He's potentially thinking about what team is going to be on for next season, if anything at all. And if he does go anywhere, it's probably not going to be on the Neon more than likely, as he just sends it straight off the map. So yeah, not exactly the way that clearly Zest was getting killed by Neon. If, well, he's not so happy with the meta as it stands. And I'm sure time will maybe tell whether Riot decide to make a change to Neon. I don't think she's kind of ridiculous, probably somewhat unbalanced in a way, but is she going to be used on such a high percentage pick rate as to make Chamber-esque from back in the day? Probably not, but would Riot not change her and make updates in January before the season starts? I wouldn't count it out. We know that the pros are worried about this, that they grind for months on a current meta, and as soon as the VCT is back in business in the early part of the year, they just change the meta again. So all that practice goes out the window to some degree. Of course, there's building chemistry and the like. There's also this from MIBR and Aspas. People are pretty convinced now this is nearly going to be a done deal. So this isn't official confirmation. It's just a nice little graphic, but nonetheless, we think MIBR Aspas is going to be a thing, but there's still so many updates over the next couple of days that you guys want to stay subscribed for, just because we're not sure if this is actually going to go through. Do they have the money to make this work? And if they do, what roster do they form around Aspas? Is he actually going to get a good team? Can they be better than Leviathan, for example, who they are apparently going to buy him off? NRG could maybe have even tried to get Aspas, but it doesn't seem that was ever going to be especially likely. They've brought in another kind of assistant coach as well to the lineup to help with the team behind the scenes. We know that the talk about that team last year really was they don't have a strong in-game leader. On paper, I think Ethan could have done a decent job. In the end, it didn't especially work out right. FNS comes in, the team was a bit of a shambles, and obviously this season we're having the same questions around a roster like Vitality. They're trying to form a super team, but do they have all the pieces for in-game leadership? Maybe, maybe not. NRG do with FNS. They've got the coaching staff now to back that up as well. And there was also talk about Gen.G and a similar question over there. So Yoman is coming in as one of their players. We know that their team blew it up. They kept Texture, they kept Karon, they re-signed Munchkin in the end as well. And then they needed two other players. Lakia is not going to be there. Meteor, we know, has been signed to T1. And I think the reality was, after Gen.G won as they did in Shanghai, then didn't have the result at the World Championship, it was going to be a difficult bidding war for them to keep hold of that roster. Maybe they wanted to, but if T1 come along trying to find a full Korean team, and they're offering a guy like Meteor serious money, Gen.G just probably weren't able to feasibly match that. So they were forced to make some sort of change. But yeah, Yoman's coming in as one of their additional players. Somewhat interesting, this pickup to me, just because mostly well known for some of his leadership characteristics elsewhere. So what's going to happen with the current lineup with, Gen.G? Who's going to take on the IGLing roles? Is Yoman going to be the second caller, maybe? Because on an individual level, not a player that would have necessarily been top of mind in terms of like raw talent to replace the players they have, but I guess it's kind of like a lackey replacement. I think the good news if you're a Gen.G fan though is that the other player they're looking to sign on the Sentinel role, where arguably his best suited, is Foxy9. So a player who was on DRX last season, actually really impressed me. I thought this guy had lots of room for improvement in the future as well and was a real talent, and I was surprised, to say the very least, that DRX decided to part ways with Foxy9, Flashback, right, make the changes that they have decided to do. So I think Gen.G were wise and are wise to take advantage of that, and that apparently is going to be the final piece of the puzzle to complete their roster. So yeah, interesting changes. Does this keep Gen.G as strong as last year? On paper, probably not, to be honest, but and I do think that these changes are at best sideways moves. It's extremely doubtful they get better with these changes. I think merely they have to manage the circumstances they find themselves in and do the best that they can in the circumstances, and this is probably one of the best selection of options they could have done, but intrigued to your perspective as ever in the comments section below. Just one real quick thing, Sentinels played another show match yesterday, Sen versus Tens and Friends it was called. His Tens back in the red chair, thought was kind of nice, and actually sorry for light mode here, let me make sure, yeah, that's much better. So it was a 3-0 for Sentinels versus Tens and Friends. Look, it was a fun game in the sense that, you know, playing on controller, there was subbing people in. Daff, of course, came in, had, well, some interesting performances on either team. Tarek was subbing in, Redux was subbing in. So, I mean, yeah, look, it was not exactly the most competitive game you're ever going to find, but it was still interesting to see the new Sentinels team mostly in action on the Haven, on the Binds, and then, of course, on the Split as well, 13-11 in the end to round out the series. It was entertaining. Zeltis and Tens has ever had a bit of a back and forth here with the replies, and, you know, Zel's like, I can't wait to farm you. I've seen you aim with a mouse. You're not farming anything on a controller, kiddo. So it's good to see, like, Tens. I feel like since he's retired, he's become slightly more open and, you know, he's less corporate maybe on social media. I know that you tend to find that anyway with players when they play for Sentinels, but I think Tens' tweets have been very entertaining since he's called it a day from the competitive roster. The other big discussion point, though, of yesterday was on the brand new Evil Geniuses team. Of all the rosters in the Americas, EG are usually, because they have the least money to spend, like one of the last teams to lock in their roster. We've heard rumours on this for some time. Potter, to be honest, was linked to go to NRG at some point as their new coach. That never happened, obviously. She decided to stay on this roster, or like NRG didn't give her a better offer, or basically she got no better offers elsewhere, which, you know, was maybe a bit of a surprise, or she wanted to stay, kind of unclear. NRG, of course, getting Bonko instead. That makes sense. They can bring on Verno. And there's also talk about whether, you know, Scuba, for example, from the Oxton esports team, which seemingly is no longer a thing, they should try and get him, because Redux is now on Sen, Verno is now on NRG. I think someone's got to get Scuba, because he was the other promising player as far as I'm concerned from that team. And if I was EG, I'd certainly think about it at the very least. Otherwise, if I was NRG, I might sign him as a sub or something. That might be an option too. But Evil Geniuses are like, hey, we might be doing something now. And apparently that's going to be true. So Ryan tweeted this out yesterday. The 2025 EG roster has been finalized. The lineup will be Sim, Nature, Yay, Superman, and Hiko. So, you know, now, look, it's not going to be Hiko, but I thought this is quite funny, because this is quite close to the real roster, but, like, Hiko's not actually going to be back. But, look, with Potter pulling the strings, the roster definitely has legs. Not quite fully true, as we see here as Derek says, look what you did, Ryan, so his mum is hitting him up and saying, Hiko, like, are you okay? Why are you signing Hiko? What's going on here? So, and Ye then says, put the fries in the bag, little bro. So, you tend to see this. If a player is joining a certain team, it is more likely than not that that player will start to have some sort of interactions in the Twitter replies of the player they may potentially be teaming with. And here we are with Ye and Derek having, well, a fair few conversations yesterday. This is the rumoured team of 5. So, of course, it was the roster that we looked at with Sim, Nature, Superman, and Ye. But, of course, with Derek instead of Hiko. That would be the theoretical change. And according to Rocket Bullet's latest update, update, this is now as close to locked in as we can get. So Lev still need a 5th. We don't know who that's going to be. MIBR Aspas we think is going to be a thing, but we have no idea what's going to be the case under the organization outside of that. We're still not 100% sure on Louds, but apparently Vinny, DG, Zan, Karen, Zantoys, and Pankada might be the team of 5 over there, which actually isn't bad at all, given where they could have ended up after losing Les and Sadak, in my opinion. But Evil Geniuses, Ye is back, apparently. We saw that he was trialing for the roster a while ago. The idea of him officially returning full time I think is very exciting, because definitely a player that under Potter's guidance can potentially get back to some serious form. There were rumours, I mean Legia said it, that in scrims Ye was El Diablo himself when he played for Bleeze. The feeling is that Ye still got it. It's just for various circumstances and reasons he hasn't been able to show that or deliver that in the server over the last couple of years. Ye himself said on stream not long ago he feels in a much better position individually and from a mentality perspective as well, and believes he's in a position to capitalize. And then he tweets this out yesterday as well, feeling a little evil today, and Zeltis is like said evil, welcome back to NA. Obviously G2 in the replies, Sabrosa in the replies, and a few other comments as well. Going from bleed to EG is insane. Potter setting Ye up for success with Superman, and Derek goes hard in a soon-to-be chamber meta, which is an interesting observation that it's plausible given rumors, given updates, that chamber comes back into the meta more so in the future. We've talked about that before. I think Chamber will at some point come back into meta play, and maybe he's viable now on some level. So we'll see. I think it's rather exciting to see Ye potentially in that position again, on a roster at least in the VCT. And I think it's quite clear from Ye's tweets over the last couple of days that, I doubt that he'd be baiting here for no reason. Derek, of course, even tweeted out a picture of Ye and himself from, of course, the Cloud9 days. I don't imagine Ye's going to be putting a Cloud9 jersey back on anytime soon, or Cloud9 hoodie back on anytime soon. But yes, this was getting lots of traction on the timeline, and for very good reason. So very much interested to your perspective, as ever, on all of this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.